Hello and welcome to this version of the FMS Friday 15 Friday morning webinar. Today we're going to cover the FMS Bank Reconciliation Service. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what the Bank Reconciliation Service can do for you. It helps tighten up your internal controls. Cash is your most vulnerable and liquid asset. It's highly susceptible to fraud and theft, both internally to your organization and externally. In the example, you may have employees who are taking money from your registers or anything like that with lottery, any kind of fraud that goes with that. The bank recons that are done timely can help you identify those. Externally, even at FMS, checks get captured in the mail. People make images and cash checks. You have to be careful with that, and this will help you through a check reconciliation service to identify checks that are not really on your account. Also help you track deposit discrepancies. For example, if your cash deposit was supposed to be $1,000 and that's what was put on your books, but the bank actually clears it for $500, something happened to that cash between your safe and the bank drop, so that helps you to identify those things as well. Bank Recon services help ensure that best practices are in place through timely cash reconciliation like we just talked about. It also ensures separation of duties and things like that. So if you have somebody that cuts checks for you and does your bank reconciliations, that's a problem. You really want to have those two things separated. It lets you manage your cash flow by knowing what is outstanding at any time. Through the report features in our check reconciliation module in the software, you can get an outstanding checklist or a cleared checklist at any time that you want. And the last thing to think about is, do your employees really know how to reconcile credit card deposits, fees, lottery, etc.? We don't allow plugging at FMS. If someone tries to plug a figure to make your bank reconciliation balance or make anything else balance for that matter, that's highly disciplined here at FMS up to termination. So we do not allow that. Some other items to think about. What are your current bank reconciliation practices? Like we talked about, is one person cutting your checks and doing your bank recons? How are those being done? Are they taking a lot of time? What do these practices cost you in terms of labor dollars, time spent, risk of exposure? Like I said before, we do ensure separation of duties at least between the bank reconciliation and who's actually cutting your checks. And then, are your bank reconciliations done correctly and timely? If you're just checking off a box in QuickBooks, that's not really doing your bank reconciliations correctly. You want to make sure there's appropriate and correct adjustments between the general ledger and the bank statements. We can help you reduce your period close time. It really is based on the type of information that you give to us, how quickly you put your general ledger entries in, etc., etc. Some attributes of the FMS Bank Recon service is daily matching. This is done automatically. There's a 5-point check. It covers cost, date, and it allows for a date range, especially on like credit card deposits where you may clear a couple of days later. And we can set those based on the type of deposit or bank transaction that's coming through. Cost, date, any kind of variance, etc. So all of that is automatically done. If there's a variance, it flags both our FMS Treasury Management Operator and also which will generate an email that they'll pass on to you as the client to look at those exceptions and try to identify what the issue was. It does allow for timely and accurate cash position reporting like we talked about. So you can, at the end of the period, you're going to know what your adjusted cash is at the bank. It's going to allow for deposits in transit and outstanding checks, so you know what kind of cash you have available. And then it also allows for a three-way match where available between the point of sale, which is the FMS software, your bank transactions, and your credit card merchant provider. So this helps ensure whether or not your credit card merchant is charging more fees than what's in your contract with them, etc., etc. Some other attributes, again, automated bank to GL reconciliation. So it's going to take the bank data on a daily basis and your GL data on a daily basis, and try to automatically reconcile those things. Like I said, the things that can't be reconciled, it flags our operators and they address at that time. It does do automated journal entries back into FMS. So instead of at the end of the month doing your manual bank rec, then taking all of those entries and posting it once a month, this is going to generate a daily journal entry job. So as those things happen at the bank, it's going to post those journal entries back into your ledger. Again, within predefined tolerance levels, if there's, if it's a $0 tolerance, then it's going to flag everything, and you can adjust that accordingly based on bank transaction type. Of course, you get your bank credit and debit adjustments. Any return checks would be automatically booked for you. Service fees, return credit card transactions, plus your credit card fees and things like that. In addition, it does automated check clearing. So there's a check clearing job. As those checks clear the bank, that the next morning we get the transaction data, and that gets pushed back into the FMS general ledger or the check reconciliation module, so that you can run a report at any time to get your outstanding checks and your cleared checks. It helps you manage your cash flow a little bit better. All right, this is a little diagram of how the data comes in. So here in this field, you see the bank data. So we're going to get daily bank transactional data. We don't have to wait on you to send a bank statement, or we don't have to go download a bank statement. We get the daily transactional data the next morning from the previous day. So that gets all loaded in. It gets the daily GL data from FMS, and that gets loaded in. And then any credit card merchant statement data, that gets loaded in as well. The system does the reconciliation, and it outputs a cleared check file, a GL adjustments file, and then any research items or notifications, and I'll show you an example of one of those in just a moment. And then work papers are going to be the statements that we provide to you. Here's an example of an exception notification. Basically, you get an email from our bank rec team, and it's going to state the bank account number and name that it refers to. Kind of a little description of what's going on. In this case, you see in the GL header, the deposit was supposed to be for $34,000 cash, and on the bank side, it came in as a $3,400 deposit. So to me, this is probably a typo on the GL side, but this is something that you would have to address, that you would want to know about. So this is an example of what you would get, and it could be for any type of thing like that. All right, so we're going to get three types of basic reports from FMS once the bank-to-book reconciliations are finished for the period. So let's take a look at the bank-to-book reconciliation, the variances, and the GL adjustments at this point. Make this a little bit bigger for you guys. This is the report kind of in full, so you can kind of see the outlay of it. I'm going to zoom in. But basically at the top, you're going to have your header information, so the bank account name in the system, the bank account number, and an associated GL account number in FMS. The report run date is going to tell you when this was actually ran and for what period ending it's for. So the balance per bank is going to be based on your period end. It's going to summarize any deposits in transit at that date, as well as any outstanding disbursements at that date. And then it gives you an adjusted book balance, and then it's going to give you a list of unverified bank items. This is going to be the total of any of those research notifications that you receive that have not been addressed yet. So anytime you have an unverified bank item on your bank-to-book reconciliation, you're going to want to look into that and let us know so we can correct it in the system. Then you get your reconciled bank balance here. Then you start with your beginning ledger balance again at the period end date, and any of the bank adjustments from the bank transactions that goes back to the GL are going to be listed here in summary. And then you'll get your adjusted ledger balance, which should be in balance with your bank, and you'll have a green imbalance flag here. If for some reason you ever get one of these and it's red and says out of balance, please immediately get with your FMS representative. All right, so page 2 is going to take us right to the summary of deposits in transit and disbursements outstanding. And that gives you the list of deposits in transit. What you're going to want to look for here is anything older than a couple of days from the period end. So if you've got deposits in transit from June, you're going to want to address those. Same thing on disbursements outstanding. This could be checks or EFTs or anything of that nature. But basically, if you have old outstanding checks or disbursements, you're going to want to address those as well. Anything else outstanding should be typically from the period that you're currently reporting on. So that's the main report there for the bank recon. The next two reports actually describe what's going on here in this section, the GL credit adjustments. You're going to get a report that's the straight up adjustments to the GL. This is going to show everything that's happening. So I'll make this one a little bit bigger. It's the layout of the report. Let me zoom in. So now you're going to see, again, your header information. And then this is going to be all of the information here that gets booked to the general ledger. And it tells you when it was posted, what dates. And it runs through all of these variances for whatever reason. In this case would be credit card fees, so on and so forth. So everything, here's a sales tax, insufficient funds, etc. So everything that gets booked to your general ledger is what's going to show up here. Then the last report you're going to get is a variances report. And this is going to show anything that did not automatically reconcile or did automatically reconcile but was within your variance constraints. Anything that didn't match up exactly. So credit card fees are going to be the primary one that it is. So these all fall within the percentage range. If not, you would have got a notification. But it could be a cash deposit or lottery or anything of that nature. So all those variances will be listed on this variance report. And you're going to want to review those with every bank reconciliation that you receive. All right, so those are the three main bank recon reports you get after all the work's been done for the period. And then at any time, you can go into the FMS system if you're an applications client and run a cleared or outstanding check report from the check recon module. I'll show you how to do that and show you some examples. If you're a BPO client for full service, you can contact your FMS accountant. They can run that for you. There's also some Empower reports that can be ran for outstanding checks. But basically, all you have to do is go into the check reconciliation module and go into check reconciliation, and then under reports, it's check transaction listing. And here, you're going to, for the most of you, you'll see this type of screen. You're going to pick whether it's AP or payroll or blank. It doesn't matter. Your beginning check numbers, I'll usually leave those 0 to infinity. And then check date is going to be your date type. So typically, you're going to go based on check date. But you could choose recon date or status date. Now for beginning dates and ending dates, if you want an outstanding list, what I typically do is leave the beginning date blank so it picks up all prior checks and make the ending date the period ending date. So based on the reports we just looked at, it was 11/28/13. And then I'll just flag outstanding as yes. And hit enter and confirm. It's going to give me an outstanding list up to that date. If I want cleared checks and I just want it for a date range, I can put in my date range here and here, flag that to no, and make clear to yes. You can run those together, and the system will, the report will tell you the total of outstanding and the total of cleared. Just know that whatever date range you use is what you're going to get for your cleared checks. Here's an example of the outstanding report. Let me make that a little bit bigger and zoom in for you guys. So page 1, you can kind of see the type of account, check number, the payee name, the date, check amount, and whether or not it was cleared. Of course, if it's an outstanding list, there should not be any cleared amounts, and you go all the way through to the end and you get your total outstanding amount that you can apply, you can look at. Same thing on the cleared checks. Starts out at the top, same stuff, but now you're going to have the cleared amount and the cleared date. And at the end, you'll get your cleared total. Pricing for the FMS Bank Recon service. If you're a full service BPO client, that's already covered in your weekly fee. So we either do your bank reconciliations manually on the spreadsheet, or if you provide us with the read-only bank logins and the completed bank authorizations, we'll add those to our automated recon service covered in that fee. If you're an apps client, it's based on a range based on your number of stores. You can contact me or your FMS representative or your FMS salesperson, and we can give you the quote on those or get you in touch with the right person. We do need a read-only bank login. We'd like to have it specifically for FMS. We don't want to share logins with you guys because you have full access, and we don't want full access. We just want to be able to download the daily transactional information. Any merchant logins, and again, some completed bank forms that we can get with you, get to you. And that's it for the bank recon service. Please contact me with any questions or concerns. Feedback is appreciated as well. That's my contact information there.